Between 1983 and 1985, Charles Ng, along with his partner in crime, Leonard Lake, tortured and killed up to 25 people at Lake's California cabin, which included a custom-built dungeon where many of the killings took place. The duo's victims included friends, neighbors, family members, and some unfortunate strangers. You can cry and stuff, like the rest of them, but it won't do any good. We are pretty cold-hearted, so to speak, says Ng in one of the two videotapes showing the torture and murder of their victims. However, it wasn't Ng's killings that led police to him, but his shoplifting. In 1985, Ng tried to steal a vise from a San Francisco store. The store owner called the cops after Ng had left, and when Lake returned to supposedly pay off the debt, the police were suspicious of him since he did not match his ID. In fact, the man on the identity card was Robin Stapley, who was missing at the time. This prompted the police to search the cabin, where they found evidence of the murders, including records and tapes. Ng fled to Canada, where police there arrested him for yet another theft incident. They then sent him back to California, where authorities tried him for murder. The 55-year-old is currently awaiting the death penalty. Known simply as the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez haunted the streets of Los Angeles during the 1980s. Over the course of a little more than a year, he broke into several area homes and killed 13 people. Ramirez's prior criminal record for lesser crimes would ultimately do him in. One witness identified an orange Toyota that Ramirez drove while fleeing a crime scene, and the license plate number led police to his file, which prompted a manhunt. Suddenly, his face appeared on the front page of every newspaper in the area. Ramirez attempted to flee, but a group of locals apprehended him, holding him captive until police arrived. A judge called his crimes acts of cruelty, callousness, and viciousness beyond any human understanding and sentenced Ramirez to 13 death penalties. Ramirez would not see a single one. The serial killer died while waiting on death row in 2013. While working as a prostitute in Florida between 1989 and 1990, Eileen Wuornos killed 7 men. She later claimed, however, that all of her victims had attempted to assault her and that she carried out the killings in self-defense. Either way, the cops caught Wuornos in 1991, after witnesses had seen her driving a victim's car and gave an accurate description of her. After a lengthy trial, the judge ordered the death penalty. In 2001, Wuornos chose to terminate any pending appeals and came clean about her motives, writing, "I killed those men, robbed them as cold as ice. And I'd do it again too. There's no chance in keeping me alive or anything, because I'd kill again. I have hate crawling through my system. I am so sick of hearing this she's crazy stuff. I've been evaluated so many times. I'm competent, sane, and I'm trying to tell the truth. I'm one who seriously hates human life and would kill again." On October 9, 2002, she was executed by lethal injection. Luis Garavito, a Colombian serial killer all too fittingly known as the Beast, confessed to assaulting, torturing, and murdering 147 impoverished boys throughout the country. When police arrested Garavito in 1999, they charged him with 170 counts of murder, and some suspect that his true tally may reach above 300. Despite the gravity of his crimes, he received just a 22-year sentence, as Colombian law only allowed up to a 30-year sentence for any crime. Likewise, since Garavito helped the police find some of his victims' bodies, his overall sentence was reduced. Garavito is currently in prison, carrying out that sentence. The monster of the Andes, Pedro Lopez, was convicted of killing 110 girls, but some criminologists believe he may have killed as many as 300. Lopez traveled between Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador throughout the 1970s, picking up and murdering his victims. Lopez claims that, at his peak, he was killing up to 3 people a week. But the most disturbing part of this story is the aftermath. In 1998, Lopez was released from his psychiatric unit for good behavior. His whereabouts are currently unknown. Known as Russia's Red Ripper, Andrei Chikatilo murdered up to 56 women and children between 1978 and 1990. Frustrated by recurring impotence, Soviet killer Andrei Chikatilo found pleasure only through violence. In 1978, he began killing, strangling, stabbing, and eviscerating women and children he lured from bus stops and train stations. In 1984, he was taken into custody after being caught trying to lead a young girl away from a bus station. He was released, however, when the results of a blood analysis suggested his blood type didn't match the DNA found at the scene of his crimes. When he was caught several years and many murders later, emerging from a forest with bloody hands, the police put him under surveillance and later arrested him. A test revealed his blood and DNA type were different from each other. He was sentenced to death for each of his 52 murders and executed by gunshot to the head in 1994.
Dennis Rader taunted the police and the media for decades. He sent them letters, calling himself the BTK Killer, an acronym for his modus operandi: bind, torture, kill. Using that method, Rader killed 10 people in his home state of Kansas between 1974 and 1991, all the while blending into society as a church-going family man. Before he was finally caught in 2005, he is currently serving life without parole.
Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee cannibal, assaulted, murdered, and dismembered 17 young men between 1978 to 1991. Famous for having eaten and preserved his victims' body parts, Dahmer was finally caught when one of his intended victims, Tracy Edwards, managed to escape. Edwards fled the house in handcuffs and told police about the assault and the strange-smelling 57-gallon drum in Dahmer's bedroom. The police found 4 severed heads in Dahmer's kitchen and arrested him. In 1992, Dahmer pleaded guilty to 16 murders. He was bludgeoned to death by a fellow inmate in 1994. The inmate said God had told him to do it.
John Wayne Gacy is known as the Killer Clown for his hobby of painting clowns and performing at birthday parties as Pogo the Clown. Gacy is believed to have lured as many as 33 teenage boys and young men into his suburban Illinois home in the 1970s. With his clueless wife in the other room, he assaulted them, strangled them to death, and buried their bodies in the crawl space under his house before he was caught and finally executed in 1994. Perhaps perhaps one of the most famous serial killers of our time, Ted Bundy committed his crimes throughout the 1970s in various states, including Washington, Idaho, and Utah. An attractive man, Bundy lured women to isolated areas where he would kill them, often by decapitating them. Occasionally, he would return to the bodies and perform sexual acts upon them. Officers first caught Bundy in 1975 in Florida, but he somehow managed to escape and commit more crimes over the following 3 years. In 1978, the police captured Bundy for the second time and the court sentenced him to 3 death penalties. He died in the electric chair in 1989.
Take care of yourself, young man.
Thank you.
I say that to you sincerely. Take care of yourself. It's a tragedy for this court to see it's such a total waste, I think, of humanity that I've experienced in this court. You're a bright young man. If you made a good lawyer, I'd love to have you practice in front of me, but you went another way, partner.